Welcome everybody to the Ishtar podcast. This is Dr. John, your one and only host speaking. No, I'm just kidding. But I am your host for today because Melmsie lost a bet to me. So my name is Dr. John, so I'll be your host for today. I'm joined today by Jaeger Gaming
Hello.
and Wurlitzer,
Howdy.
Lightstyle, our special guest, and
Hello.
Melmsie, the person who actually records all this.
Hi.
And so today we are starting into our Ishtar podcast, which is Destiny related, usually, unless it's Star Wars The Old Republic. And I believe today we're talking about lore and the TWAB yesterday. So I'll hand it over to Melmsey, who will get us started in our first subject.
Oh, you're heading. I thought you wanted to host it, sir.
I did, and you're the responsible for the
Oh,
first subject.
Okay. Sorry, boss. So we want to talk a lot about lore tonight. So we're gonna get the TWAB out of the way first, because it was filled with a lot of good information, as in things we really need to know, but a lot of information that people aren't necessarily happy about. We can kind of talk about that. So the first thing, and I'm late to pulling that up right now. The first thing is they gave us a big list of everything they are sunsetting, or not sunsetting, putting it into the Destiny content vault. And there is a lot. There is a ton. I assume you guys have pulled that up or are pulling it up now.
I have it up.
Do you guys see how many PvP maps we're losing, for instance?
That was very surprising to me. I didn't think PvP maps were going to be part of it at all, even though a lot of these aren't actually in rotation right now anyways.
Right. But still, and you'll notice they mentioned that they're adding a new strike, but they didn't mention anything about a new Gambit or PvP map. Which, I mean, they might just be mentioning the strike because there's not that many strikes, but if they were going to mention a PvP map, I feel like it would have been here.
Yes, that would make sense. I mean, I'm looking at it, and one of these maps immediately stands out to me as I'm not really that sad about it leaving. In fact, I think I'm actually might celebrate it with some champagne. That being Vostok.
Yep.
Or maybe vodka. Maybe just, yeah. I'm gonna celebrate that because that map is a nightmare.
Speaking of celebrating, the Festering Core is getting moved into the content vault. By far my least favorite strike ever.
Huh.
Yeah, I haven't felt any significant pain from that. I think that's just on you.
Yeah, that's just a you thing.
No, seriously? I hate it so much.
Is it because of the lasers?
It's not because of the lasers. It just feels really, really long. Like one of the longest ones.
I think the longest is the one on the moon, right?
Is that long? Yeah, it's pretty long.
It doesn't matter.
Now, what I am sad is that they're taking out Will of the Thousands, which is like a super short strike. That being
That's true.
Zol. Zol is literally like show up, grab the thing, and go kill him. And that's it. I'm sad.
And then in addition, they're taking away 7 PvP modes.
I was also surprised by that. Yeah, all the 4v4 stuff. And
Supremacy, Countdown, Lockdown, Breakthrough, Doubles, Momentum Control, and Scorched.
To shrink on the number of playlists in the Crucible.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate they're taking out both Momentum Control and Scorched because they were both super unique.
Well, they are returning sometime during Year 4.
Yeah.
I wonder if that'll be a seasonal thing.
Nothing surprising on the TWAB with the raids. That's all stuff they've already told us. They did officially give us word about how we're going to be able to get all the exotics that I definitely have gotten almost none of, and that was nice. For instance, I'm finally going to be able to get Izanagi's Burden.
You don't have that either?
No. It's a pain in the ass to get.
I think you could I think the list of exotics that I don't have is longer than the one of exotics that I do have.
That's fair. I mean, probably. Well, no, that's not same. I'm missing a lot of the ones that just have quests, and some of the raid ones. Thousand Voices and Teraba. But and then the big thing that I've seen the most people upset about is the fact that a lot of catalysts are moving into the content vault with no word on returning anytime soon.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it, and it's like, if you have the catalyst, you're set, but if you don't, oh well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I guess they're going for like if you haven't gotten it already, like you should have already gotten it,
Yeah.
or like they're giving you until November to get it,
Mm-hmm.
because none of these catalysts take more than, I think the longest is what, 5 weeks for Outbreak perfected.
Yeah.
3 to 5 weeks.
5
I was
weeks.
just about to
5
ask
weeks.
about catalysts that require progress in content that's going into the vault. Like the World Light Catalyst requires you to hit all the escalation protocol bosses.
Which would be what, 5 weeks as well?
I think so.
5-6 weeks, something like
I
that.
feel like they could have. What would have made people hurt a little less is if they would have made it kind of like Sunshot, like get 1,000 kills with Izanagi's Burden or something, like transition to something that's not leaving with the content vault, so that they're
Yeah.
still acquirable. But yeah, they still haven't talked about transmog, which arguably I think people are more wanting than the content vault information.
I've been waiting on a transmog TWAB, but to be fair, that's not coming in Beyond Light, so I'm not really expecting a giant information dump until maybe even after the DLC drops.
I think that the bad thing about that is so many things going away, people like the armor sets. So they want to know whether or not they need to grind for them right now or not.
Yeah, I think the big question on a lot of people's mind is do you need to have it all in your vault, like in your inventory, or can you pull it from collections?
Right.
In my opinion, I feel like if you have it in your collections, like if you can go into your collections and see that you have acquired it, it should be unlocked and able to be transmogged.
Yeah,
Probably just for some glimmer or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
That's how it
honestly, I'd
works.
pay even more than that, like just for the
Oh,
sake of
by
not
the
having
way,
to get it.
World of Warcraft has been my main game for like years, and I've played Destiny off and on. So if I reference how things are done in World of Warcraft and compare that to how things are done in Destiny, that's why. But yeah, I don't really know how I've stumbled onto this with as little Destiny knowledge as I have, but I will do my best.
It's okay. It's
That's
like
all
John
right.
in Star Wars: The Old
Yeah.
Republic.
Yeah,
Yep.
John does
We-
that role perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, we do the same thing. It's simply just because Destiny called themselves an MMO, so you have to treat them like one. And if they're not living up to the standards of other MMOs, you have to criticize them for it. Or if they're doing something better, you have to praise them for it.
Right.
So it's just one of the things that I look at. So there was one thing I did find really interesting about the TWAB is the fact that there are 3 things that are going away which we directly paid for, being the original story to the game, and then the first 2 expansion stories.
Mm-hmm.
Those are something that we paid for to receive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this goes back to something I saw a while ago, about the reason why Bungie made the game free to play, along with the first year's worth of stuff, was for what's it called, law reasons, I guess. That wouldn't be the word for it, but for the fact that since it's been free for over a year now, they can technically take it out of the game without any repercussions, is what I heard. So I think that's why they introduced free to play to start with.
I feel like that's not the sole reason, but it's probably a definite perk.
Yeah, but because now they can take out, they're able to take out those 3 storylines which were directly paid for by the consumer.
Right.
So I'm not exactly sure what like the laws are around that, considering the fact that we did pay for it, but it's interesting
It is.
because
interesting.
normally like a game can't get rid of that.
Let me ask you a question about that, because like when they vault all that content, I know that they said that they were going to do like a new Guardian experience with the Cosmodrome. So they're kind of redoing that. I really hope that they do a better job this time of guiding new players and kind of telling them, you know, hey, here's what you do. This is where you need to go. This is the kind of stuff you need to do. Because that was one of my main complaints. Because I've been playing for a while, so I've played through all the story missions, and I've never been super good at the game, but I've, you know, played off and on. During this latest content drought in WoW, a lot of my friends have come over to play, and I can't tell you how many of them like got onto the game and then had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And they just stopped because it's like the game did a terrible job of telling them why they were supposed to do certain things, why it was important, like lore wise, like what's the story? Because at the moment with New Light, you don't have to play the story mode. They do a terrible job with that. So my question is, with some of the main lore, actually the thing that spawned this question is my studying for the lore part of this podcast, because I had to go study for like 5 hours. And I was realizing like how much of that content is being taken out of the game and put into the vault, and new players that are coming in are just not going to get that. So how are they going to bridge the gap for new players to, like, you're coming in, all of this shit happened, but don't worry about that, here's where we're going now? So it's going to be less of a play the game and just play the season thing, which I mean has its benefits, but I think that for people that enjoy the story and like the game as a whole, they're really going to be missing out. And I think you said something last week, that there's a concern that the new content is going to keep returning players, but it's not going to keep new players. And I think that's a very valid concern.
Yeah.
There's some interesting wording in the swab. I don't know if you picked up on it, but it says the question, it was like a Q&A part, and it said, what will new Guardians experience if year one campaigns are going away? And the wording was really interesting to me. It said, we're building a new expanded Guardian origin story on the Cosmodrome that will launch along year 4, blah, blah, blah. It is designed to introduce you to the world and mechanics of Destiny and prepare you to play the action MMO game we all enjoy. The fact that they said origin story and prepare you to play an MMO makes me think like it's going to be like a mini campaign almost,
I mean,
to learn the game.
I really hope so, because my big problem is, I mean, I experienced this back in Destiny 1, to where Destiny 1 was flawed in every manner in terms of its story. We all know this. If you played it, you know it, because I played it and I went, okay, who am I? Why am I here? And who am I going up against? And what the hell is the tower? Those were my first 4 questions, and the game didn't explain any. It was just, hey, you woke up in the middle of a random field, and there's some dude that says that he's called your ghost, and now you have special powers because of him. Like, the game never did a good job of explaining anything, especially it never, and I don't know if it ever will, do a good job of explaining the lore beyond what's inside the game. Because that's been like a big issue in Destiny for the longest time, was the fact that it's like there's this amazing universe that is created, yet we only get this tiny little sliver to get to actually see in game. And for new players, that's not, for a lot of people, that's an absolute turn off, because they're like, I want to know what's going on in the game. Like, most people wouldn't know right now, if they weren't looking in external sources, that like Prince Aldrin is still alive. Right. Or like he was dead and then he got resurrected by a ghost, and now he's he's kind of on his own, because you can tell that Guardians don't like him.
Well, I think there was a lore piece that directly said Guardians would like spit at him and stuff. Like,
yeah. And so he's like living on his own, and he won't come near the tower or anything. But you don't know that. In game, you just know that he died and that was the end of it.
Right.
And that somebody killed him, either you or Petra did.
Yeah, and
Correct
like,
me if I'm wrong, but I believe in Destiny 1 there was like an opening cinematic after you beat the first mission that just gives you a really bare bones look at kind of the history of the world, where it just kind of goes over the golden age, darkness came, and now we're kind of on our own.
Actually, if I'm not mistaken, that's in Destiny 2 as well. I think they ported that over.
Yeah, they got one in Destiny.
I think I vaguely remember when I made my wife play recently, she was like, I'm bored, and she skipped the cinematic. So,
that's
yeah,
unfortunate.
But everything shouldn't be tied to a single cinematic. That's the thing.
That's true.
It should be built into the game as you play. You learn about the mechanics, and they need a better system for that.
Right.
Bungie's not alone in that though. So WoW has a really bad habit of putting a lot of the core story in like novels between expansions. So if you're not going out and buying this novel and reading this whole book just to understand what took us from here to there, you're missing out on a lot of stuff. So players that aren't reading the books just come into the new expansion like, okay, well, how did we get here? And it's been pretty consistent for the last maybe 8 years or so. But WoW is also, with their expansion coming out probably about the same time that uh, whatever this Beyond Light is coming out, they're actually revamping their starting experience as well, and they're doing a whole new mission with a whole new area that new players are going to go to. It's going to be a lot more like guiding them through, teaching them how to do things, kind of teaching them how to group with people and all that kind of stuff. So I think that a lot of games that are massively multiplayer online, whatever, that have years and years and years of content behind them and don't expect people to just jump in and know what to do. I think they're kind of getting the picture that they need to revamp that, because I don't think it's a coincidence that they're both doing it kind of at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Interesting.
It's just funny when I compare that to like Star Wars: The Old Republic. I always got to bring this in.
Oh, here we go.
It's very story. The thing about that game, though, unlike a lot of MMOs, is that it is more story oriented, like early on, than it is gameplay oriented. Like, sure, it explains how to use your new abilities, and you get new abilities as you progress. But it's more focused towards like what's happening in the story. Like, why is your character doing something? And that's what I always liked. Is that in between, like whenever you go to a new planet, you always have somebody telling you why you're going to that planet, what's on that planet for you, and what you might expect to see on that planet. And then you get there, and then if you do more side quests, you get to even better understanding. Because that's what about the game is that you could just do your main storyline and understand perfectly, but then you could also do side quests and planet quests that give you even a better understanding of what's happening in the entire universe rather than just with your character. So I
think
feel like Destiny could incorporate that.
they have that a little bit with the
Mhm.
adventures. They're really bland, but like if they could spice those up and add a little more story content to them than just like go here and search this, because some of the adventures you're literally helping them like study light and stuff like
Yeah. The problem with the adventures is that there's not a good enough reward in order to actually convince me to do them.
there's like no reward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if there's a chance to get like exotics or legendaries or like an exclusive set of gear from doing certain adventures on a planet, people will be way more inclined to actually do them.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't because of that. Or like even like massive experience gains, people would take a look into that. Like what if you got like a whole experience level like on your season pass from doing one adventure? People would be way more inclined to do those. You know, just something. There's no incentive. Right now you get it's like doing a crucible match. You get like 2 blues and, you know, a little bit of experience. And a little sprinkle of glimmer.
Okay, so
Even if the rewards stayed pretty minimal, I think just giving something, just even to tell new players, hey, do some of these adventures to find out more about this planet, and then go do something the same on the other, just to give them, because they do have a little bit of information in each one to tell you about each world.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Okay, so just we're talking about lore overall this podcast, but that doesn't always have to be like we're talking about a lore passage. How would you guys see how from the current state of Destiny, what do you think would be the right path to start introducing the lore less in, in weapon details and more in the game? Like how would you find that in a mechanic that people would still enjoy?
I think the Fellwinter mission from last season, if
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many people here played it, but it was, I think, an almost ideal example of how it should be introduced, where after finishing the quest, you go on this one secret mission, where it's basically just an interactive. You walk around as Anna Bray basically reads out a lore tab to you, really simplified, and she just tells you like basically the whole story of Fellwinter in about 5 sentences, and then it gives you the gun, and then you unlock lore as you use it.
I feel like the issue there would be though is that takes a lot of development time because it'd be one
That's true.
mission per whatever lore piece you want.
Oh, you mean like for every single?
I'm talking about like just
for,
in
like,
general, how should they start introducing lore more frequently?
I mean, I think one of the first things we need to do is sort of get rid of the lore passages, at least as the main source of our lore. Like, I know it takes development time, but we should be getting the lore from doing gameplay, from doing missions, from doing side quests, whatever it is. That's where you should be getting your main understanding of the universe. Of like, you finish up a mission, and then, or as you're doing a mission, you should learn about things throughout the mission. One of the things I always thought was a big disservice was the fact that like there's scannable objects in a lot of missions, or just like roaming around the Destiny areas, you can scan objects and it gives you information on them. Why doesn't it just your ghost automatically as you pass that object say, hey, look at that, you know, and then start talking about it rather than you having to scan it? I know some people might, you know, and then have the option to turn it off if you're not interested in the lore. But for those that are, then they get a better understanding of what happened here. Sort of like there's the one lost sector. I think it's a lost sector where you find Aldrin's crashed ship. And I wish in that there was a mission or something dealing with that, with Aldrin's crashed ship, or a cutscene or something explaining how he got there. Because if you, once again, you have to, it's always like if you read the lore, you find out that he crashed after the Taken King showed up and he crashed onto Mars with his ship. If you don't read the lore, you don't watch Bife videos, you have no idea. You're just like, so he crashed on the planet somehow and there's a ship here now.
Right.
You know, and like I wish there was just like a story to where like maybe like you save Aldrin as like a good favor for him or something. Just that I wish we were focusing on the main storyline in the game. That's my problem.
Right.
Is that everything's in the, is that we're just doing this tiny little minute task and everything that actually is happening is in the background and they don't explain it, like Sabathun.
Right.
I
I guess that's true about Savathun, because I mean Savathun's literally been a big figure since D1, and the casual player who doesn't look up lore doesn't know who Savathun is for the most part.
Exactly.
Until maybe this season.
Yeah, I was gonna say this season. I think, especially the public event dialogue, I think they've really turned it up a notch in terms of amount of information per just little tiny snippet of interaction between two characters.
And I think that's a good stepping stone. I think that interaction is actually really good because I mean, I have played a limited amount this season, but I know that like from the missions we've been doing, we've been getting so much better understanding of what's happening in the overall universe than any other season. Last season, outside of the Fellwinter stuff, we learned nothing except for the fact that Rasputin knows how to take down one ship.
Well, and then Season of Dawn did a really kick-ass job with Saint 14.
Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I just feel like we need a better, just a better system to where it's more story oriented rather than go here, do that. Okay, sweet, you did something for Ashermere.
Right. Okay, fair. Well, I guess we can start talking about some of our more favorite lore entries. I figured it'd be fun. Does anyone have anything that's like their all-time favorite lore entry that they will never forget? Or
I mean, I do, but I've been talking a lot, so I'm gonna let somebody else go first.
sounds like you're up, John.
Oh, jeez. Well, I was taking the time to pull it up because I wanted to make sure. It's been a while. So, how about Jaeger talks about Fellwinter for a little bit?
It's my favorite piece of lore. I just think it's really cool.
Then what's your favorite?
Can't remember like the exact like backstory of it, but I really like the idea of like Outbreak Perfected and Prime.
Just like the Siva in general, or
yeah, just like the whole like idea of like we are harvesting Siva for our own power and using it against our enemies. You know.
I love the lore behind the Whisper of the Worm. I think turning Zol into a gun is pretty badass.
I only just now found out because of like Reddit like a day ago that the main enemy from Beyond Light is the same person from the 0 Hour quest. I guess that's one of those instances where they don't. I mean, I don't remember the name of that boss we fought. So, but 0 Hour was a really cool. I mean, that had a ton of. It wasn't even really lore per se. It was just super nostalgia heavy. But, I think my favorite piece of lore probably has to be. I don't remember the exact details, but it's the verse, or not verse. It's the line where it's "and the helmet stayed on" with Shax. Shax
Oh,
is my favorite character in the entire Destiny universe. He's so cool. Like, he was literally a lord, and when he became just like a guardian, he's like, I'm gonna keep the title, and like no one argued with him.
pretty much.
So, what was yours, John? Did you have time to look
All
it up,
right,
or?
all right. So my favorite is of all time, and probably will be for all time, is the Books of Sorrow. Because the Books of Sorrow explain the entire birthplace of the Hive. They talk about the three main figures being Oryx, Savathun, and what I know in the lore it's Orish. I don't remember.
I
Um,
never remember their
The
name.
it
Jeter,
might
I think that's someone else.
I don't remember. It's been a while, but I love Books of Sorrow because the Books of Sorrow explain how the Hive went from where they lived somehow to our solar system, how they evolved over time, and I mean it's also just super long. Like, I mean, I've only read the full thing one time through, but there's certain ones like one of my favorite is just the very first one, Predators, to where you get to talk about the helium drinkers and the fact that they're on the is that they live on this planet that has this thing called the Fundament Ocean that has these currents, and essentially the Hive came from a birthplace of to where extreme danger, to the point to where they would get raided every day, and then they had these helium drinkers which were in the sky, and they would, I think it was the helium drinker, something would drop down a light, and then they would be like inclined to follow the light, and then it when they grabbed onto it, it would pull them up into the sky and kill them, sort of like actual bugs. And it was just like a really interesting story to where I wish that was more. There was something like that in the game, maybe like something that Orcs would explain of like like when we before we killed him or something, or like throughout the story to where he's explaining like why he's upset about you killing his son and all that. But
Was he actually upset? Because
I mean,
the sword logic's like, if you're weak enough to get killed, you didn't deserve to live.
I don't know if he was necessarily upset, but most people saw it as like a revenge. Like, why else would he show up to the solar system? I think if anything, he saw it as, so Oryx got killed by us, so that means his grip on the system is like he's upset at us for breaking his grip on our system.
I feel like I
If
almost took it
anything,
more of a curiosity, like, whoa, what just killed my son, which was a super powerful being.
I mean,
I mean, that's how I've always
curio-
perceived it myself,
yeah.
I guess.
Curiosity only gets you so far until you unleash a super weapon in the rings of Saturn and kill like half of the Awoken fleet.
They didn't need that fleet.
Actually, yeah, and essentially kill Mara Sob there too, who we turns out actually kind of planned that. But once again, you got to read the lore.
I
I
didn't
mean,
know
like
that.
it's a little bit in the game.
Like, I knew she
So
wasn't
yeah,
dead, but I
Yeah, they
didn't
have
know
the
it was
Queen's Court,
planned.
so you could go up there and see her.
and then she in Destiny 2, we got an actual better understanding of that, how she made her way into her own hive world, or not hive world, like abused the sword logic to create her own realm and everything. And we learn a little bit about that, but like it's one of those things to where it's never fully explained, and I think they've been getting better at it, especially in Destiny 2. It's just I wish we got more information about stuff like the sword logic. Like in Destiny 1, one of the things they definitely could have done was had a guide in Crota's end who was explaining every step of the way, like why we're doing stuff, like why the sword works on the knights but the conventional weapons don't, instead of it just being, or like even like after we completed it, because obviously they don't want to give away how to complete the raid. Like after completing it, like a little voice line talking about the sword logic. I don't know.
I know this is off topic, and we're really bad about that. But you
Yeah, we
talking
are.
about the sword logic just gave me this really cool idea for a Crucible match, where every kill you get a little more powerful. Almost like you're like if you start leading the lobby, you're basically like a juggernaut, and everyone's trying to kill you to become that. And they could literally just call it sword logic or something like. I don't know. It just sounds like it'd be fun because you were talking about how to like explain it and stuff. I'm like, okay, let people practice the sword logic in the Crucible. I don't know. I think we haven't heard anything about Marasov for this upcoming DLC, have we?
No.
No, not really.
I
I'm not even
figured she'd be
sure.
involved for somehow, but I mean, if we haven't heard anything yet, I kind of doubt it.
I don't know. It's
Have you heard?
I don't know.
Have you heard Reddit's big theory about Zavala?
No,
Oh,
Oh gosh.
not
Okay.
Reddit. Oh, jeez.
come on.
No, no. Listen, it's actually a good theory. I subscribe to
Oh,
this theory.
okay.
So basically, there's the Ahamkara skull above Shaxx, and we got some lore that was basically it talking, and we're not sure if it was the dead Ahamkara talking or Savathun through it. But they was basically talking about how like every day this person looks up and speaks to the traveler, blah blah blah, and it was like clearly describing Zavala. And then
Yeah.
there were parts of the lore, I don't remember the exact lines, but it was basically like I can feel like his grief and sorrow, and like it. My theory is, and a lot of people on Reddit is that he's actually gonna turn to the darkness because the traveler keeps letting him down, because he's like, oh, the traveler's everything, but time and time again the traveler doesn't wake up, it doesn't help even when these huge threats are coming. And it didn't even really wake up when Gaul was like sucking the life out of it. Like I don't know, I think that we're gonna get a twist come next DLC, and Zavala's gonna be all in for the darkness.
Hmm.
Because I mean, you'd think before I read that lore, the first thing I would always think is like, which guardian in the entire game would be least for the darkness, and it would be Zavala in my mind. But this would be a really good twist.
I could see that happening just as a spin on him above all else. I think even now, above all else, you can kind of tell his main objective is always protecting the people of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll do whatever he can to do that,
Yeah.
even if it means churning to the darkness.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the lore hasn't even said if churning to the darkness is a good or a bad thing. It's just described it as a thing. Like, especially right now with like, this is actually something that they are doing good in the story, is the fact that the darkness, at least like the pyramid ships, have been calling us their salvation, or our salvation. So it's like the lore's not necessarily saying the darkness is a bad thing. They've said Savathun is not good. She's got bad intentions, but it hasn't necessarily said that like the darkness is bad and the light is good. And that's what I kind of like about the Destiny story, is the fact that we're not just like, no, Luke, don't join the dark side. It's bad. Like, they're actually coming together and saying, well, we're not so sure which side is necessarily better than the other.
I just want to point out, to back up my theory, Lance Reddick, who voices Zavala, posted a Twitter video not long ago, and he was like, hey guys, recording lines for Zavala, and then he goes, it's crazy, and that's the end of the video. I mean, it's crazy. It could be like, oh, I mean, he could be,
Crazy
it could be
patrol
anything.
dialogue for Europa.
Yeah, exactly. But, or it could be a big plot twist that he hinted at. I don't know.
I think we're definitely getting set up, especially in this season, for kind of accepting the idea that the darkness is not by itself a bad entity. It's kind of the same. I mean, they use the word paracausal in the lore all the time, and especially
Right.
like in the new dungeon, it literally, they flat out tell you, well, at least in the opinion of the Nine, like, hey, these are basically the same thing. It's all about your intention and what you actually do with it.
Yeah. I think with how vague they've been about this upcoming DLC and how little we've seen about the story compared to normal, I think we're in for some twists.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember how they described it in that VOD like a year ago, but this summer was like no time ever in Destiny before, and they said something along the lines of it's going to set us up for something big. Like, and obviously they might have just been saying we're going to get the Darkness subclass, but I think story-wise something big is going to happen. I mean, they always go fairly big with the fall DLC. I mean, we had Cade killed, and then we had the darkness was here and communicating with us a year later. It's going to be something. It's going to be more than just, oh, you got some ice powers now.
Yeah.
They specifically said in the video for the Beyond Light stream, they said we're going to be entering an era of loss this year.
Did they say loss? I thought they said Cade's year was an era of loss.
Oh, or maybe Cade's death was the loss?
Wait, isn't this like the era of like rebirth or something? Didn't they
I
say?
thought
No,
Destiny,
no,
if I
didn't they just
remember,
say the
Destiny
era of
1 was the
darkness?
era of rebirth, and then I guess maybe starting with Cade 6 was the era of loss, and now maybe this is the darkness era.
I think
Maybe that's even worse.
this year was the era of like triumph or something, because we're like, I mean, we're getting Saint 14 back, we got all our powers back, the city's rebuilt. I don't know. I'll have to look that up.
We'll have to rewatch it later.
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, getting back into Books of Sorrow just real fast. Another part about that, a reason why I like it is because they introduced the worm gods into it, in the fact that Oryx, Savathun, and the third one that nobody can ever remember, found the worm gods and essentially worshipped them to the point to where like they listened to what the worm gods had to say and they served them, which is what gave them their powers beyond what their normal species was. I forgot the name of their species originally. And then the worm gods would then grow. And even though we've killed Zol, like that's the only worm god we've ever killed. There's more than one of them. I forget how many were in the lore, but I remember there was more than one. And so it's like, so yeah, we might kill Savathun, but there's still these worm gods that exist. And it's just a part of the lore, to where it goes back to my same thing of the fact that Destiny is so big, and I think they struggle with trying to tell the whole story and the fact of just how big it is. And I think I can partially blame that on the lore books from Destiny 1, because like Books of Sorrow is all from Destiny 1. It's from the Taken King expansion. And so I think that might be part of the problem, is the fact that they expanded too quickly, not realizing that they would eventually run into a point to where new players would be coming in with so much information to have to learn.
Right.
I think in-game delivery has definitely improved, as we kind of touched on earlier in the last few seasons, but I think it's really focusing on the delivery of the lore that's kind of specifically required to play that season and just get a base understanding. And I don't think that most of the story of Destiny is ever going to be kind of revisited and retold in specific, adventure dialogue or gameplay or missions or whatever. I think that's stuff that's already in the past. I think it's kind of done with in terms of in-game lore delivery. But in the new DLC, I would expect to see like a way larger increase in specifically dialogue in game. That's been kind of slowly getting tuned up, I feel,
Well,
especially
see,
this season.
I have a theory, a very big lore theory, and I've had this for a while, but I've sort of been developing it as the story has gone on. And the fact that, so we've had the Dreadnought sitting at around the moons of Saturn for a while now, right? And Oryx is dead, so essentially there might be some hive left on it, but really, nothing is really happening on there. And I know that we're going to be going after Savathun somehow, but I feel like I'm not sure if they're going to end Destiny, like Destiny's storyline off on this, or if they're just going to start a new era. But I feel like we're going to end up using the Dreadnought to evacuate Earth, like as like the final evacuation. There's a lore book that came out a little bit ago, talking about like a future to where to where all like humanity evacuated Earth, and there's like spaceships and some are failing, but they have to keep moving on as some fail.
I mean, didn't that already happen though?
Yeah, wait.
might
Wasn't that the Awoken?
Yeah, like that's legitimately the Awoken story.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Am I getting my lore confused?
I think you just described the Awoken.
Did I? Oh my! Oh well.
Hey,
Still,
time is a flat circle.
Still using the
Yeah.
Dreadnought, I
Still.
would second that, because I'm really confident that in the next 2 years we're going to go back to the Dreadnought.
I
See, that's the
guarantee it'll be
thing.
during Savathun's year.
Yeah, and that's a possibility, but I feel like it'd be interesting in the fact that we get to a point to where we become so desperate that we have to abandon Earth, and literally like that'd be like the ending of Destiny or something like that, or like the starting of a new game that maybe it's not Destiny anymore,
Don't
but
say
to
the end of
where
Destiny, man. I'll have nothing to play.
But we take the dreadnought. I mean, like years down the road, but we take the dreadnought along with some other ships to evacuate Earth and evacuate humanity, to maybe go back to a different universe or even find like the Hive home planet. It'd be interesting.
Very aggressive.
Yeah,
It is. But I mean, like,
We're gonna
like,
take the
years and
dreadnought
years
back
down
to
the
your
road.
home world.
That would be
Earth
funny
Hive,
though. What if
that's
like
worth-
6 guardians just was like, you know what, we're gonna take the dreadnought all the way back
Oh
to
my
the
God.
center,
Please, Savathun raid, where we go back to our home world.
go kill Savathun with the dreadnought.
Yeah.
That would be a very interesting.
There'd be some
lore
cool
rise.
mechanics with that.
Yeah, like activate the dreadnought's super weapon
Yeah,
by completing certain mechanics.
by doing bounties.
By
But
doing bounties,
bounties.
and you kill enemies, they drop motes, and you gotta bank it somewhere.
We're gonna make this
Oh,
into an
man.
entire season-wide concept of arming the weapon to kill Savathun's fleet, just so on the next season we can have a Savathun raid.
That's basically what we just did last season with Rasputin and the
Yeah, I
pyramid
know.
ship.
But this time
So-
it's the dreadnought.
This
so
time it's gonna be
different.
different. I swear, guys.
Yeah, so I know the Dreadnought is a massive hive spaceship that serves as the throne world of Oryx, the Taken King, who came to the solar system to enact his revenge against the Guardians for killing his son. Accompanied by a fleet of hive ships and tomb ships, the Dreadnought entered into the orbit around Saturn after having been stalled by the Awoken and stayed there for the rest of the Taken War. But what could you guys do to elaborate on that? Because I actually
think you
did
got
not
it,
know what the
man.
Dreadnought was before just now.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay. I mean, I can explain it. So in Destiny 1, there was this guy called Crota, and he was on the moon and he was causing some problems. And so our Chad Guardians just went up to Crota's pit underneath the moon and basically just told him no, and then we killed him. And Crota happened to be Oryx's son. So Oryx is this hive god who had a son, who had the son Crota. He was mad that his son was dead and that he lost his grip on the moon. So he decided to show up in this big, massive spaceship that we call the Dreadnought with a bunch of little ships, and it's this entire like hive-controlled ship. And this was ended up being a location in Destiny 1. And he showed up to Saturn, where the Awoken decided that they were going to try to stop him. And using this like special magic powers, which aren't explained in the video at all. There's an entire video that you can watch on this, like the cutscene, to where Marasov uses like a special weapon, and that sucks. I don't know how much you can hear then, but essentially, uses a special weapon to attack the dread. He can't hear me, can he? Oh, it's
No,
not
I
me.
can hear you. You're fine.
Oh,
You're
okay.
fine.
So yeah, Marasov uses a special weapon to attack the dreadnought, and it literally like destroys a couple of ships and then doesn't even touch it. And then Oryx says, "Now it's my turn." Sticks his sword inside of the ship, and then the ship unleashes an entire blast, which kills almost everybody. And that's where we get to Marasov, the queen of the Awoken, sort of went missing. Her brother crashed onto Mars. And then we went and killed Oryx.
You'll hear a lot of players reference the Taken King as like the best DLC Destiny's ever
Yes.
had, and that was that DLC.
Oh, okay.
The raid is very fun. If you ever get the chance to play it, it's actually a really fun raid.
Let me ask you this question: if someone were to want to go play Destiny 1, is that even possible anymore?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's still
possible.
available.
There's still people that play it.
And oh, really? And you could go do the raids.
Yeah.
You could, but it's just really difficult to find people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'cause
so
everyone's playing Destiny 2 now.
Better have friends is essentially what
Yeah.
they're saying.
So what you're
And-
saying is, if I knew 4 people that seem to be owners of said game and would be willing to carry a noob through these raids, just to see them.
If
that
you
it's
have an
possible.
Xbox One, I'm interested.
Yeah.
We
I probably
actually
don't own a
are.
console anymore.
I've been talking about doing a raidathon with. It was one of you guys, wasn't it?
It was me.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Okay, that's what I
probably
thought.
Eager.
Yeah, we thought it'd be fun to do a raidathon. Literally do every single raid in Destiny 1 and 2 in a row in one stream.
That would be fun. We could
Yeah,
do it
Or
for
they
fine.
go
charity too.
away.
It'd be a long day. It'd be a long
Oh,
day.
it would be like a 13-hour
took-
stream, so you
How
gotta
long
be
did
up
it
for
take
the
Glad to do?
It took him like 9 or 10 hours.
Okay,
it'll
so
be
it'd take us
19 for us.
18.
For
Yeah.
that's glad running through it.
Yeah. So we'll just double that. No, because
Watch
seriously,
4-hour
some of
stream.
you'll hear this opinion a lot, and I agree. Some of the Destiny 1 raids are like still the best out of all of them. Wrath of the
That's for
Machine is
sure.
like amazing. I will never forget
Um,
Wrath of the Machine. I know everyone
not a-
liked Oryx,
I really like Wrath.
I never got to play Rise of Iron. I quit right before.
but
Oh
Really?
my.
Yeah.
I've done
I
Wrath
really
a few
like
times.
Wrath.
Even though I always end up doing Wrath at like 3 o'clock in the morning when I don't want to be there. And so it's like, what do you want me to do? You want me to put the ball on his back? The X button's not there. Oh, he teleported. Ah, jeez.
you're gonna have to raid with John and Jaeger sometime because they have the most fun way of explaining things.
Oh, yeah. Everything's an analogy.
Everything.
Usually food.
Usually food. Yeah, they taught me multiple raids this season. So
If you ever want to learn a raid, I can give you a food reference for it.
I could probably give you a cock and balls reference for a lot of the mechanics in SMU2.
All right. Well, we got a Papa Pizzeria. I forgot what
chicken.
Spire was. Making chicken noodle soup. Was that what it was?
I think
no.
you said chicken noodle soup.
I think I made that one up on the spot.
Like meatballs would work for Spire. Isn't that the one where you throw stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
throw
got to throw the meatballs at the
into the spaghetti pot.
into the spaghetti pot. Yeah.
I
We'll
like that.
explain.
I like the food references.
It makes it more fun.
It does.
I used to try to explain it like normally, and people never got it. So it's just like, you know what? Let's just add some food into it because it keeps them interested.
How would you describe Vault of Glass using food analogies?
Ooh.
Oh.
Which encounter?
Any of them, because I'm trying to think of it right
Well,
now. It's like,
I can tell you
can't
right
just-
now, the Gorgon is the manager's catching you smoking.
yeah, yeah, yes. That's what it is. For like the final boss on, it's just you gotta deliver a pizza, all right? But you're doing group deliveries. It's a new safety system. So you got two people who are fending off the gangs that are chasing you for your pizza, and then you got one guy who's the driver who makes sure that they can still see, all right? And so you gotta drive. All right, you gotta drive the pizza to the location while destroying. You gotta drop off the pizza, which are your bullets, into the oracles, which are houses. All right, so you drop those off, and then once you do that, you get to the final boss, which is your boss when you come home and you forgot to get all the money. So you gotta defend yourself using the shield from your boss. Okay, I gotta work on this one, but it would
Yeah.
work.
I feel like Wrath of the Machine could also be pizza delivery because you're trying to drive the delivery car.
Yeah, I mean everything is pizza delivery.
I'm
Honestly,
trying to
pizza
think of something for Atheon where you push him off, but I can't think of why you would want to push food off of a table.
They're not going to let us push him off when it comes back.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that the other
If it
day.
was celery, I would push it off and burn it with fire.
Yeah, he's a giant celery stick, and your goal is to push him off.
Just get him out of here.
Or sushi.
He's a time traveling celery stick.
Just get him out of here.
I'm traveling celery stick.
No,
that's-
Vault of Glass coming back is going to be a treat. I'm going to run that a lot.
I
Oh,
hope they
yeah.
change up the mechanics just a little bit. Just
Actually,
I
that's
feel
not-
like I was thinking about this the other day. They really need to add mechanics to where mastery equals like a faster raid time. So like Crown.
so essentially not Crown of Sorrow.
Yeah. So for example, Crown, the beginning encounter takes at least 15 minutes,
There's no making it faster.
and you can't make it faster. So if
It's-
there's like a way to where like if you stand on this plate after like you refresh, there are like 6 more crystals that spawn in the next time, and you get all those done, and it adds like a completion to the round.
Yeah, my fastest Crown run is like 29 minutes, and even then, the first encounter takes up the majority of that.
Yep.
What? It was my flawless run. It's the only raid I've done flawless because it's the only one I've had the patience to.
I have never done a single activity in the entire game flawless, basically. So,
Not even a patrol mission.
no, I highly doubt
No.
it, honestly. Jaeger, you saw me in just those basic strikes being overpowered and still dying 20 times.
I don't even understand like how it's possible. Like nothing was happening, and then he's just dead.
Because you're not giving him callouts.
Yeah, I need the pro food callouts.
Yeah.
Was your wife in the
Oh.
background taking shots every time you died?
No. Oh my god. So
that
for those
seems
of you
like a
who
fun
don't,
game.
for those of you who don't get what he's talking about, he finally completed Garden last night, and my wife and I and a friend watched, and I set up a drinking game where every time they'd
Oh,
wipe on the final boss, we'd take a shot.
Well, how drunk were you by the end?
I ended up
Very.
not taking shots. I just let them take shots.
So I don't know if our raid strategies are the same like as other teams, but we kind of go for one particular thing and work on that until we have it, and then we move on from that. So we wipe very quickly. And if we identify a problem, we just wipe. We don't play it out. We want to get it fresh in our minds, talk about it, discuss it, and then do it. So in the first like hour, there were probably 30 pulls, like easy. So it's just shot,
painful.
shot,
I
shot.
think
that
like
sounds
the
like
I think like the
poison for
last
sure.
5 wipes,
Jeez.
I stopped giving them to her. I was like,
Yeah,
you've had
that's
enough.
dangerous.
She
Yeah,
was
no.
she was
When you
drunk.
told me that, I was like, no, God.
No,
No.
The new raid boss is her liver.
Oh my.
And what was it? Lumpy's bladder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my
Yep.
bladder.
Oh,
Yep.
jeez, no, you can't
That was a
do
fun.
that.
That was a fun time though.
That's
I liked the nerd screams when you finally got it.
Dude, I was so
my.
hyped.
That's
I
an
didn't sleep until
interesting
like
approach.
3:30.
Huh?
I said I didn't sleep until like 3:30 a.m.
Oh my
because I was
gosh.
just too hyped on adrenaline from that.
Now next time you'll just speed through it. It'll be like, wow, why did I ever take so long on this?
Yeah.
That's usually how
it
it
works.
goes.
But that's an interesting approach because every team I've been on, it's always been, it doesn't matter how scuffed the run is, as long as we
keep going.
complete it, we complete it. So what we do is like, if something goes wrong, until we get to the point of no return, we just keep going. And I can't tell you on Garden, especially whenever me and Jaeger do Garden, every single Garden raid is always scuffed on the second encounter. It does not matter what it is, partially because we usually scuff it up. Like, oh, you're running and I'm running? Okay, how about we just do a full
That was
rotation
so
where I
bad
go from
last
1
time.
to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 1. And we just keep doing that.
How many times
And,
did we wipe the last time we did that?
Too many.
Once?
4.
I think it was
4?
like 4 times. And it wasn't
I
even
don't
for
know.
good reasons. It was just like someone's like, "Oh, I'm running." Like,
Well, like the last Garden I did, which was with you, was like, oh wait, we don't have somebody. Oh, Mr. Big Cat is AFK.
oh yeah, that
Oh,
guy just left. He came back like
Oh,
5
wait.
minutes later. Sorry, had to pee.
No, he had to get his popsicle.
Oh, his
remember?
The popsicle.
LFGs are a wonder. I love it sometimes. I found
If
you
there's a
guys through
raid-a-thon,
LFG.
We should definitely do shots every time we wipe.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
No, I can't afford that.
Each
doing
time
all
during
the
the final
raids.
boss.
Phew.
Oh,
Lightstyle, the
time
next
you
time you
wipe
want to
every
run
time.
Garden, I'll teach you the cheese to get it done real fast. You can get 30
I already
motes per
know it.
pull. Oh, okay.
It's called
I
having
chose
5
not to
friends
do
that
it.
know it.
yeah, that's honestly how to get it done fast right there.
True.
We should
Mhm.
do last week.
No,
I've never good.
So
done
I
that.
had been carried through it twice. Well, not necessarily carried through it, but I had done it, and they were just like, you go over here and you pick up these boats and you put them in there and then just kill stuff. So I had like no idea what was going
Yeah.
on with the building. I had no idea like how to tell
Oh,
if
I
the
still
thing
don't
was
get the
fully
building.
charged or like how to do the tethers because I was just job was to shoot stuff and pick stuff up and put it in a hole.
Mhm.
So this was like me learning the fight for the first time actually, and then trying to lead others because they were like, "Oh, Lightstyle's done this before; he can lead." And I'm like, "Oh shit!"
Nope.
I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, sure, why not?"
It was interesting that you were on the Fortnite team every time.
Mhm.
On the what?
Oh,
The
sorry,
build
you
team. The
building
build team.
building the,
The Milk
platform.
Masters.
The Milk Masters.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a better vantage point for leading the raid, right?
Yeah, that's where I always
Yeah.
sit.
No,
Because you can direct people on what to do.
you were my polling, or you were my team 1 partner, sir.
Oh, what? Oh, no, I wasn't leading that raid.
Oh.
We were just going along for the ride.
I mean,
You
I didn't
kidding
know
me?
what I was doing.
Look, at this point, whenever I raid nowadays, I'm literally just along for the ride.
I remember
I'm just like-
we did Crown, and I was like, "Can you teach everyone?" And you're like, "Oh, I guess."
All right.
Like,
I did that for Crown, and I did that for Spire.
that was a
I was
painful
like, oh.
Crown.
Oh, you want to learn? Even though we did Spire pretty good.
Spire,
Yeah.
our Spire one went really well.
It took us an hour 46 or something.
We
No,
wiped.
not
I think
an
we
hour 40.
wiped
It took us
one
like an
time in the
hour.
final encounter.
Yeah, and then that's when you were like, "Well, if we only wiped once on Spire, surely you can get us through Crown."
Nope.
I was like, "Oh, all right."
Funny enough, I think I was the one who died the most in the last encounter of Crown. And not funny because it was super annoying, but
Possibly, because we've done what, Spire, Eater, and Crown, and Garden. We've gone through all of them.
and
Melmsie, you've done Last
and
Wish,
Scourge.
right?
and Scourge.
Oh yeah, and Scourge.
Yeah, so we need
You've
to do
done
Last Wish.
right? Oh, you haven't?
I haven't done it all the way through. I've done the boss encounter a lot.
Oh. The only
I haven't
encounter
done
that we're all gonna learn together on is the vault
Lock and Key.
encounter. The vault encounter. I know how to do it.
Is that the one
but I
with the
don't know how
different
to do it.
things that like block off?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
actually done that one time, but my job
I've
was
done it.
literally kill ads and don't look any other direction but where my ads are.
Hey, mine too. No, I've done it to where I've been a runner on it, but I don't understand it completely. Also, have never done Riven legit. So
Well, why don't we
should
do
that.
Last Wish soon because I know Zig's
We
never done it
should.
either.
We should do that as part of the
I would love
raidathon,
to
where
do
we have
that.
to do every encounter
It's
legit
implied.
on every raid.
Oh god.
No cheese.
I'm reconsidering.
No,
What?
no. Wait.
That
No.
Riven fight.
I figured we'd unplug our Ethernet for Crota, right?
Oh god.
No.
No, you could
Like,
solo
don't
Crota.
know.
We're not anime who has to cheese the third encounter of
Whoa,
Garden.
don't call him out there.
Whoa, what does anime do?
He net limited on the third encounter, so he could
I was like,
deposit
oh
all
wow,
the
he knows this
votes.
cute little cheese, and he's like, don't show me on the stream, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I was literally staring at him. I was so confused because he just kept depositing over and over and over. Like, what are you doing?
Oh
I was
my
like,
God.
Just look away.
Just look away.
Don't look at me.
I don't know. How he hasn't
I
been
find
banned
cheesing
from
things fun. I don't find that kind of thing fun though.
it. Yeah, no.
I
Like,
find
it's always
fun 'cause
hilarious
it's
to
like
find a good
making the
cheese.
Ethernet cable
So,
funny.
let me ask you this then, Melmsie. So the little exploit that you can do, where you duplicate balls,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
how like do you feel like that's okay, and then unplugging the internet is not okay? And what's the difference between the two?
I think the difference is an in-game bug versus manipulating the game.
Not just that, but one of them is against the terms of service, and the other
Well,
one
yeah.
is not.
One you can get banned for.
Yeah.
Well,
so
because
you're not allowed
duplicating the
to
ball,
net
I mean, you're
limit.
literally just switching weapons while you hold E.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Bungie
but
has
isn't it
had.
still technically cheating? So from a I'm worried I'm going to get banned standpoint, and
Right.
more of a moral standpoint, like where your
Hmm.
moral principles are on the matter. Like, what's the difference between duplicating balls and then unplugging your internet? To me, there's not a difference. It's still cheesing the encounter and doing things as they weren't intended.
Right.
So are you, I think it just waters down the experience.
Well, I think
Well-
sometimes you get to a certain point. Like I do this. I think Misread and Two Pump hate when I do this when they're there. But when we do the prophecy dungeon, I'll skip the entire first encounter where you have to open the two doors because you can just glide up one of the things and then hop over and start the next encounter. And then there's also the cheese where, there's the 4 platforms, 2 of each color. And if you do it right in the middle, you can get 2 at once every time. So you only have to deposit twice. And the reason I do that, is because I'm purely there to just get through it as fast as possible and get as many rolls as possible. So it's at that point, it's less about the experience for me and more about the, God damn it, why haven't I got this hand cannon I want yet?
Mm-hmm.
I should say that I do cheese when I can. So
Yeah.
I'm not taking the moral high road here. I'm just
cheesing has been a part of Destiny since literally day one. The loot caves.
It's kind of
The
part of the
loot cave.
game, but there is actually another. There is certain parts of the community who don't believe in cheesing at all.
Yeah,
There's
well,
like, if you
I
know
know a
who
few people like
WTF
that.
Game Nation is, they don't cheese anything ever, which it actually kind of makes it interesting because stuff like Crota. I've always wanted to do Crota legit, but if you go onto LFG or not Crota, Riven, the final boss for Last Wish, if you say,
I've never
hey,
done it
I want to
legit.
do Riven legit, you will never get anybody to join you in it because you have to have friends who are willing to do that. Otherwise,
Honestly, when we do Last Wish, if you want to do the whole thing, Okay.
I want to do the whole thing legit
I'm
because
fine
I
with
feel
that.
like I've been deprived of that experience.
Because I've never done Riven legit. I mean, that's my thing. If I've experienced it once, I'm happy. Like
Mm-hmm.
fully once,
And
I'm
that's
good.
I could agree with that. That's one of the reasons I didn't want to do the cheese strat on Sanctified Mind with
Right.
the 30 motes in one
Mm-hmm.
go. I wanted to do it the right way because I didn't want the experience, like the win, to be lessened because we cheesed it the first time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like once you can do it and you're like, all right, this is just taking too long, I just want to get this over with. Like there's a certain point that you get to that where it's like, if you know the cheese, then I think that that's probably okay, like you said, just to save time and get it done. But like doing it the first time, I think it cheapens the win.
Almost definitely does.
Right. And I mean, I agree the same thing. Even like the contact public event, I was annoyed that the very first time I did it, someone duplicate the balls. I was like, come on. Like it's literally day
probably
one
me.
of the, it probably was you. It's like day one of the DLC. Let's just do it legit one time. Just one public event without
Nope.
cheesing it.
But they
Shit.
patched
And then
that
I get
pretty
into
quick.
the groups where nobody even knows what to do, so it just fails in 5 minutes and you're left with nothing.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
whole other
It's
problem.
like you sit there all day
That
trying to get
that's
it
a
done, and
whole.
it never happens.
Yep.
Well, that's a whole nother topic of itself, though. If we want to talk about main events and seasons being a public events in a
Yeah,
public
that's,
area,
and not
that's
even
been
the
just
fact that it's just a public event, but also the fact that it's requires teamwork to an extent,
Yeah,
unless
and-
you're good enough
and
to
it's not-
go through it. Like,
and it's not match made. That's the big problem. Is the fact that you show up sometimes you're like, well, I want to start the event, but there's nobody here. So do I just wait for somebody to show up? Do I start it? Do I reload the instance? Like, I don't know.
I consider
just
myself
never
in PvE a slightly above average player just because I put in the time to do it. Like I
Mhm.
practice shit. I could not solo the contact public event and get it heroic. I just couldn't. Like it's
Without
not
the
possible
cheese,
for me.
no, it'd be too. It
Well, the
wouldn't even
cheese
be
is
worth your
fixed. There's no
time.
way to do it now.
Yeah, exactly.
They patch it?
Yeah, they patched the
Well,
cheese a while
it's-
ago.
it's
Like
kind
you
of
keep
inconsistent.
duping,
Tried it so
you
long.
can keep duping it, and
But it doesn't-
sometimes it'll charge it up to make it heroic. Sometimes it won't even do that, but it won't
Mhm.
deposit motes every time you bank that anymore
yeah,
either.
you get no percentage.
So you can't rush
points.
through. You still have to go get all the motes.
I'm wondering when the polar bear is going to show up.
Oh. For those who are listening in audio, I was drinking a Coke.
Sorry.
Anyway, back to lore.
Anybody else want to talk about their favorite?
Let's
lore?
rename from the Ishtar podcast to the Off Topic podcast, and that's just good.
We
enough.
really should be.
Off topic Bungie.net podcast.
I actually getting back on the like favorite lore, like I've done a little bit of reading on the lore, and when I was going back through the expansion that I started playing Destiny 2 in is Forsaken, because they gave it away for free at BlizzCon. I think they gave away the base game for free at BlizzCon, and I kind of got into it. But the first expansion that I was like playing, it was live content at the time, was Forsaken. So going into the Dreaming City and then kind of experiencing that, like the Dreaming City to this day is still like probably my favorite place in Destiny. But when I was going back through studying up for tonight, I got onto the whole Awoken storyline. That's how I knew what I did earlier. It's not that I'm a genius, you know. But like the whole idea of them trying to escape the planet and then getting caught in this creating a singularity that spawned a pocket universe because of the traveler defeating the darkness and all that kind of stuff, and they were formless, and then what is it, Marisov just kind of woke up as this formless being, and I thought that as it evolved and she convinced the other person to be the queen, and then they got formed bodies and stuff like that, and there was this separation between like two factions sprung up. So there was the one faction that was loyal to the queen, and this other faction came up that was like, you know, we had the potential to be gods, because in the moment where it was just Marisov and then I forget the name of the other queen, they were formless, so they weren't mortal. They were gods, basically. They were untethered energy with consciousness, and that was kind of limitless. So when they formed their bodies and made themselves mortal, they kind of gave up that ability to be gods. So that actually pissed off a large portion of the species, or the race or whatever, and caused this big split between them. But I always thought that was an interesting, well, always for the last like 4 hours, thought that was an interesting thing, that they actually could have been, I mean, kind of gods, and then they gave that up.
Like semi-paracausal, at least. Like,
yeah,
that is
I
super
don't know. I just thought
interesting.
that was interesting. And then like just reading into Uldren, and then how all that, and then going all the way into Riven, and then how Riven is just kind of trapped down there, and then Savathun comes in, and they like make a deal. I just thought that whole thing was really interesting.
We're still waiting on the final wish, aren't we?
We are. Aren't we? I'm pretty sure we are.
Well, Savathun's, or not Savathun. I know that Riven, the last wish that she made, because the whole point of the raid being called the Last Wish, was the fact that she made the last wish of the Dreaming City being stuck in the cycle for forever of going. That's why the Dreaming City goes from different levels of darkness each week, and then goes from week 1 to 2 to 3, and then back to 1. And that's also why you can keep redoing the raid over and over again, like from a lore perspective. It's because that was Riven's wish of the fact that the Dreaming City would be stuck in this infinite time loop, sort of. So, yeah, but I don't know if there's another wish. I know that there's the stuff a while back of a guardian defeating the dungeon solo flawless, who it was above 1,000 power.
I was just
Yeah,
about
and
to
nothing
ask,
happened to
related
that.
to that. And then nothing happened.
Nope.
And then even though, wasn't that from the Truth to Power lore book?
Yes.
Yes.
And Truth to Power has been known to be very untrustworthy. As
Was Truth to Power written by Savathun?
Savathun, it's whoever. I think it actually is Savathun, like behind all the layers.
And Truth to Power has been known as like a not trustworthy book, in terms of what it's necessarily saying. So I would take anything from that book with a grain of salt.
It's just kind of
So let
funny
ask
to
you a
me.
question about that, about the book being not trustworthy. Was it written? So the book itself is like in the game, or it's written from the perspective of Savathun? Is that what you were saying?
Oh geez, it's been a while since I read it. So it's one of those lore books that you really gotta read. Essentially, it was from doing the Queen's like missions during the Taken King, like going to see her, and you would get a new lore book every week. And I don't think it was written directly from Savathun's perspective. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while. I would have to look it up actually for who was writing it. But essentially, it says a lot of things and makes a lot of predictions, or like says that things are gonna happen and then they never did. But then on the other hand, Truth to Power has a lot of it's hard to describe. Somebody else could probably explain it better than me.
The reason that I ask is Blizzard started releasing these chronicles, which is them trying to kind of tie the lore stories from World of Warcraft all together in like a cohesive, like flowing story, because it's all fragmented and they wanted it all in one place, and they wanted to make sure it was consistent. So they released several of these things. I think there are like 3 or 4 of them now, and they are officially canon. But then there's there's this split coming up with Destiny between the light and the darkness. The exact same thing is going on in WoW, where it's like the light versus the void, because a lot of things have been happening with the light that kind of make you question the motives. Like they have this, assumption that the light is good, but now it's kind of coming to the point where it's like, maybe the light isn't good. Maybe it's not necessarily good versus evil. It's 2 sides of the same coin, and that's very reminiscent, and it's happening all at the same time.
That's like the same.
It's weird. Yeah, it's really weird that all of this is happening kind of simultaneously across the two games, but they made a comment about the Chronicle books that they were written from the perspective of the Titans, which in WoW lore, the Titans for the longest time were like the gods of the universe, right? But we've learned a lot more about them, and they're more just like a group of or cosmic beings that may not be like the gods of the universe or the original creators. And now that we're learning more about the Void, it's like maybe all the lore that we know is told from one side of the coin. So we're led to believe that this is how it is, but maybe there's another set of books out there written from the other perspective that tells a different side of the story. So I was wondering if it was kind of the same thing where you can find lore books, but then you find the one written by Savathun and it's telling a different story, and things are not necessarily, you say they take it with a grain of salt, but maybe it's not meant to be taken with a grain of salt. Maybe it just contradicts the story that we've been told, because the story we've been told is from the perspective of the light, or the people that we are in contact with. You know what I mean?
I looked it up.
And how do you feel about that as a like storytelling technique, to leave things kind of open-ended to expand on later when you kind of run the well dry on the current
It's kind of a get out of jail free card.
Yeah, it sort of is. And if you want, I'll read the first passage of it, because the first one actually talks about the person who supposedly wrote it. So if you guys want me to, I'll do that.
Which we still don't know, by the way.
Yeah, we still don't necessarily know, but this person's talking about themselves, supposedly. So it's called "Is It You?" It's the very first passage in Truth to Power. I'm so glad you're the one who found me. I've foreseen so many horrors with these stolen eyes, but now, when for once I ache to know the future, I can't be sure of even a simple hope. Hope is spelled H-O and then capital O-O-O-P-E. It's like this several times throughout the lore book, to where O's and A's are spelled with 3 capitals with the normal word. So it's kind of weird. So, are you the one reading this message? I think it must be you, Guardian. Who else would look for me? Ikora trusts her hidden to return when they are needed, and Cade would roll himself down Angel Falls in a barrel before he admit he missed me. Zavala does not place me on his first list of Zavala does not place me on his long list of worries. You're the only one who would go out and look for me. I never needed you to save me. I wasn't a dried corpse or a dead ghost or a voice on the come sure to die before you could offer help. I hauled myself out of that pit. I made my own way back to the tower, and if I was unsubtle in the way I threw you against the hive, if I seemed to wield you as vengeance, please believe that your victories were the closest I could come to feeling joy. To many, that sounds a lot like Eris Morn, because crawled herself out of the pit, being possibly Crota, and made her way back to the tower and threw us against the hive. But and I'll continue on.
But that could be
Wasn't
deceptive.
Airborne the only survivor from the Great Disaster?
Eris
So
Morn?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great
she was
Disaster
seeing.
was just humanity kind of getting kicked out of the moon, not
Eris.
specifically her fire team.
She was the only one to make it
so-
out of her fire team.
Yeah.
From
okay.
when she originally tried killing Crota.
Right.
And
She got the
so
whole
yeah, they tried, and
eyeball
she was
thing.
the only one. That's how. But they took her eyes, which is why she has the 3 eyes instead. But keep in mind, this book is very deceptive. So whoever's writing it, you never know. I'll continue. So I know you must have questions. What did I plan with the queen? What destiny did I embrace after Oryx fell? What's happening to the city where dream has become nightmare? I can guide you to undo this curse, as once I guided you to unmake Oryx. But in the dreaming city, as in the secret worlds of the hive, there's almost no difference between the act and the actor. In order to understand my answers, you must understand me. I lost my ghost and my light to the hive. I conspired with the Queen of the Awoken to destroy the Hive King Oryx and his son Crota. and to position Queen Mara as a player on the cosmic board. I fled your tower to prepare for the struggle to come into the sea of screams which calls to all those who plumb the depths of hive magic. I can only slip these letters into the Queen's gifts when the stars are right. You have to wait for my next, and with it, the beginning of the truth. But I swear to you, on whatever trust I've earned in your mind, that at the end of my story, you will know who I truly am. In my first life, I was born Orisha Pi. Oh, I don't even know how to pronounce that. It's a name, one that we haven't ever heard before. I remember that private life clearly now, as ex guardians who have escaped the traveler's occlusion often do. I lived in St. Petersburg, first daughter of a second marriage, a very impatient child of Earth's 22nd century, often abandoned by my family, who were called by work to Jakarta and Lagos. There's another country, but I don't want to screw up saying that. To pass my days swimming in the icy Neva Bay. I loved to swim, and especially I loved the clarity of the cold, shallow Neva, or Neva. I think it's Russian. As crystal clean as a winter dawn. Enormous Zuber 9 hovercraft barges roved the waters. Russia had modernized its waterways better than its sad auto industry. As a kid, it is strange to hear me speak casually. As a child, I never swam too far from my parents' little drone helper, Fyodor. The swift hovercraft terrified me, their billowing skirts waiting to suck me up and dice me into little raisins. But I grew up and fell in with reckless crowds, rebels against the stifling death fear that came with our golden age lifespans. Soon, the child's safety harness and Fjord's careful oversight began to itch at me. It's almost done. But so the book's sort of explaining about the person without saying necessarily who it was. But what the big thing is the fact that she somehow or he is putting in messages through the interactions we have with the queen, and that's why we get the lore book that way.
So, I looked up. There's a subreddit called Destiny Lore. They literally live to figure these
Mhm.
things out. Someone, there was a thread. God, this was a year ago. It sounds like Eris, obviously, for a ton of reasons. But there was something in here. I don't know the exact details, but something that directly contradicts the fact that it's not Eris, and it's very clearly meant to be Eris, which is why people think it's Savathun trying to
Yeah.
play her trickery. Something about, like, there's something in here that, like, Eris literally says the opposite of, but it seems like she's saying here. So
Yeah, and then the rest of the first passage, there, I'll just finish it because it actually does have a few lines that are pretty important. So when I was 17, I went out in a wetsuit on a dare to dive under the skirts of an oncoming hover barge. Maybe I was in no danger. Maybe the machine would have changed course and possibly Gemini hurt me. But I thought I might die. And that's kind of weird wording. Possibly, and then it just says Gemini out of nowhere hurt me. There's a lot of the book is like that, where there's just random messages. And I'm not sure if those are actually just random or Bungie has an entire thing they set up. But, we'd find out. So machines would have changed course if it could possibly Gemini hurt me. But I thought I might die, and I did it anyways. And as that beast swept over me, as I trembled under the blast of the propellers, I felt a thing which was much like what I would have known one day as the light. Maybe that thing was heroism. Maybe it was existence on the edge of death. It was the first time I survived the passage of tremendous, godlike power. I died more than 20 years later attempting an unassisted winter swim from St. Petersburg to Stockholm. A cold front like the furnace, a cold front like the very furnace of hell caught me. I had been warned that the crossing was suicide, even for a perfectly trained and exactingly fattened woman in a shark suit. But those were giddy days, days of infinite bravery, bravery, and there was no mighty feats left except the truly suicidal. I cannot regret it. I think the death prepared me for the longer, darker, and more existential or exquisitely cruel crossing I would one day Diod endure. Another one of those weird words. It is no accident that my ghost made me in the image of that swimming woman rather than of any of my younger and less grimly determined selves. So that's the first passage to truth to power. And it sort of brings up that argument of it's made to sound a lot like Eris Morn, but it's like it never says I'm Eris Morn. And even if it did, we wouldn't necessarily be able to trust it. And it goes on to talk about much more than just about it, but like it goes on to say about the predictions that this supposed writer had. So it's very interesting. And it talks about like the death of Oryx and the conspiracy to kill Oryx, which would make sense to tell from Savathun's perspective, because as much as Savathun was also Hive, there's a big rivalry between them, and Savathun would want to kill Oryx. So it would make sense because then Savathun would be the sole ruler of the Hive. Outside of the Hive gods, of course, but you know, they're untouchable, sort of.
For now.
For now. Except for you know, Zol. That guy, we just threw a spear at him and he died. But you know.
Zol was a really disappointing fight. We were talking about
I
this some
know,
other
for
time.
supposedly a Hive god, and
Yeah.
we just kill him with a spear made by Rasputin.
Can I say, as a new player that just kind of joined into strikes, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna kill this worm, and then you kill him, and then like a year later, you're like, wait, that guy was important.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact
That's
that he's
exactly
in a
how it
strike.
felt. I was
Like
like,
I was more
wait,
than a strike boss.
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was kind of cheap too. And I didn't even realize it until like a year after I started playing. When I started, I actually watched the 4-hour video. What is
a
it?
good
Life?
video.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Life.
no, it's a legitimately good video. Recommend everybody watch it if you're interested. Just get some beers, crack them, and go. And I was like, wait a minute, that pushover worm from that freaking Mars strike?
Was actually important. Yeah.
Like, get out of here.
He should have been a raid.
We
And
killed-
everybody agrees on this. That
we
Zol
killed-
should have been his own raid with his own encounters. Because he's just too important of a character just to kill on a strike. But, you know, if it's for Rasputin, we'll do anything except for kill the darkness.
There was another strike where he appeared right at the end, or was that a mission that you do? Because you go down and
it was a
afterwards
mission.
he like shows himself and kind of climbs through the ceiling and like
Yeah.
whispers to you and all that kind of stuff.
So
I
that's
thought
at
that
the
was really cool.
yeah. So like the big like cinematic version of that was from a mission, but the strike itself was in the game because it's when you go kill Nokris,
Mhm.
if I'm correct. Because you go kill
Mhm.
Nokris and then that's when that happens because like the ceiling collapses on you,
Mhm.
and then like the very next mission he's attacking Rasputin.
Speaking of Nokris,
Oh, no.
Here we go.
do you mind spoilers
Out
that
of
haven't
bounds.
happened this season yet? Anyone?
Wait,
No, I
say
don't
that-
care.
I mean,
Do you mind
kinda
spoilers
do.
that haven't happened this season yet?
I mean, people listening might.
Yeah.
I'm lost
You already
anyway.
basically spilled the whole beans.
I'm lost.
Did
anyways,
I,
don't
though?
care.
All I know is there's a secret triumph, and
It's a secret triumph.
it's a secret triumph because we
It's a
haven't unlocked the content yet. And all I know is I thought it was going to be a new activity, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a new activity. It looks like it's going to be a mission at the end of the season, and it's going to be fun. That's all I'm going to say, I guess. Speaking of Hive in general, what do you guys think about the theory that Oryx is going to get resurrected someday?
I doubt
It's
Because there's multiple
mean,
lore
we're
entries
fighting
of the
Zach, so I
Hive
don't
going
think
against the
it's
sword
quite
logic
right.
to try and resurrect him or find a way to.
yeah.
it. They might try for sure, but I don't think they're actually going to succeed and actually bring him back.
I think they
Or if they
might.
do it for some stupid.
What if it's just like a
thing.
strike, like, and at the
Yeah,
end,
it'd be
Oryx
like-
like
That'd be so
Oryx is like
Bang.
alive, and you're like, no, you're not. Bang.
Oryx by playing Gambit.
See, I feel like that would be so cool too, and that's where you could bring back the Dreadnought with that, even of the fact of like having to use the Dreadnought against Oryx, who would come back as like even bigger than before, because you know he went from like normal sized to massive, and then we could bring him back as just like goal sized, like just pure light.
I was kind of surprised that they didn't bring him back as a nightmare in
At the
Shadowkeep.
nightmare, yeah. I don't know. I think it's because like we straight up killed him.
They
Like we
straight up
killed him
killed Crota.
twice.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
killed him
but
enough.
like we killed him twice already. Once in the story, and then he came back because he became taken. I mean, I gotta give it to the man. He's dedicated. He went from Hive. We killed him as Hive, and then he took himself, became taken, and then we killed him. And then if he got back one more time, like that's kind of impressive.
Honestly, I'd
We
kind
should
of feel
just let
bad
him
for him
live,
if he got
right?
Yeah, we should
resurrected because
let him have the solar system.
yeah. I'd feel bad for him if he got resurrected because I feel like he was like the grandfather of no, the sword logic is the only way. And he'd be like, "You brought me back. I died. That's against my nature."
Yeah,
Which I
but
guess
it
taking himself is almost bringing
was
himself
also
back. So maybe that's not how he'd feel. But
the only thing I could think of for them to like explain it lore wise would be something to do with the fact that he did take himself, made him like no longer completely Hive, therefore he could defy the sword logic. But it's like I don't know enough about the lore to be able to be like yes or no. Like in terms of how Taken works, is that essentially, when you become Taken, you feed on the light, and any living creature can be taken by like Oryx was able to take almost any living creature.
was
The
the
only
was the Taken a gift from the darkness?
I don't remember.
I
I
can't remember
remember I
how
was
the
talking to
Taken came
Bife
into
about this.
existence. You were
I was
talking
talking
to
to
Bife.
Bife. Yeah, I was talking to Bife at Guardian Con about this and all over something I forget, but I was talking to Bife about like how getting taken works and if like a guardian could be taken, because it never says it in the lore directly if guardians can be taken or not. Obviously we have armor that has been like taken infused, but we've never actually seen like a guardian or even a human per se be taken.
Fifth
And
subclass
the
question
way
mark?
the way Bife put it is that humans could most definitely be taken. It's just a matter of the fact that one, orcs never really had access to them, and number two, they really wouldn't have made that great of taken simply just because humans are already kind of a weak body and everything. And so like they're not like Hive
Speak for yourselves,
or
bro.
Yeah, we got Henry
But
Cavill over here.
it's not like the Cabal who are like these huge, massive warriors in a warrior race. And then in terms of like taking a guardian though, because that was my main question, and the best thing he could come up with is that there might be a sort of like paracausal, going back to that word like normality of like in normality of the fact that a guardian is supposed to be absorbed by the light, and the Taken are solely focused on eating the light. That's why whenever you have big experiences of light, that's when the Taken show up. So it would be like the light would be fighting against something that wants to consume light, and so it probably wouldn't be possible. But it's hard to say. Like it never says it in the lore of Guardians. Like it never. So it's really up to Bungie at this point. But it seemed like Guardians shouldn't be able to be taken.
Do you think I've heard this floating around a few times, and knowing how much Bungie likes their threes, do you think it's possible we're going to get 2 more subclasses in the next couple years to bring it up to 6 instead of 4?
I would like to
In
see
the
that,
next 2 years, I don't think so.
but I don't think in the next 2 years. I agree with
Taken
that.
King was 2015 or 16.
Uh-huh. And
I don't think 2 years.
those weren't even necessarily like that's not even adding in a new element. That was just adding in new subclasses.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
They're talking about adding an entire new element, and like we might see more subclasses, but I'd find it hard to see them adding in 2 more elements because the lore has kind of already locked in a lot of it. Like stasis is supposed to be this whole darkness thing, so maybe we'll get like 2 more darkness based subclasses.
Well, that's the thing though. Stasis, from what I've seen and heard, it's not really the darkness.
Yeah,
It's just more
yeah, and
relates
that's
to
the
the
thing.
darkness, like from like a natural standpoint.
Because yeah, and it's just weird though because like the solar void and arc were supposed to be like the 3 binding elements that keep the universe together,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why we have those 3. So then stasis has to be something else, that it's based out of. It can't be based out of those 3 things because otherwise that would be Bungie having to go back and retcon their own lore.
Well, it wouldn't be
saying,
the
well,
first
that
time.
lore piece wasn't correct, and I know they're not going to do that. Instead, they're going to have to add in something else.
Yeah, I don't know. That just got me
What if
thinking
it's
because I was
tied
thinking,
to dark matter? Because aren't the 9 like manifestations of dark matter in the universe? Like,
I don't know anything about the 9 really.
I don't know much about the 9
I
either. I wouldn't
I
surprise
They're-
me,
They
though.
seem super interesting, but
so from what I read, the 9 are manifestations of dark matter, and they're each bound to one of the planets of the solar system. So like if something happens, so they're bound to the life on the planets and through the solar system, so they have a motivation to protect life because they're kind of bound to that. So there's a split between two factions. Again, this is kind of a common thing. Some are set to protect life because they're bound to it, so they're kind of locked into it. And then there's another that are not necessarily worried about like us. They're more concerned with figuring out how to separate themselves from that bind, uh, and kind of release themselves from that. And they don't really care if we live or die in the process. So if and the 9, yeah, I was wondering how that would work. If it's like if there's the 3 elements that keep the universe in balance or the solar system in balance, but then there's also that dark matter that the 9 are bound out of that doesn't really interact with the others. Like, wouldn't that kind of be an already existing element within the known galaxy that we could be harnessing or tapping into,
Possibly.
since we already like communicate and interact with it as it is?
so you could have ice, dark matter, and then whatever the fuck taken blights are made out of. There we go. There's 6.
Mhm. I mean, there's definitely something. Um, oh, I know this is kind of off topic what we were just talking about, but I was looking through the Truth to Power lore book again, just because I've been doing this in the background, and so in the very last section of it, it straight up the book is like yelling at you that I'm Eris Morn.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, you can't trust this book. But it says, "How can I prove to you that I'm really Eris Morn? Not Medusa," which it goes into Medusa. Not Medusa, not Riven, not Kira or Karia, not Dueling Karu, not the Witch Queen herself, being Savathun. I don't know. Will you believe me? Will you scour these pages for proof or disproof? Will you upload these files to your networks, share them, call in warlocks and cryptarchs to catalog and dissect everything I've said? Will this manuscript become the foundation of another teetering edifice of theory and anticipation? What a fool I've made of myself, all because I faltered in my conviction. I tried to reach back to someone I know is lost to me, and I panicked at the thought of touch. But so it is, and I have nothing I do can now make it otherwise. I'm a woman full of secrets, a woman who has lost everything she ever called a friend, and when she needs to share those secrets collided with the fear of friendship, I stumbled idiotically into needless lies. Do you know what the hives say when they want to express an inevitability of a thing? When they want to say, when they want, when they, sorry, when they want to say it is this way because it could be no other way? And they just, I'm not even trying to pronounce that, but it's AIAT.
Um,
And that's the end of it.
this is one of those things where, to me, someone who likes to ruin people's fun, I'd be like, "Hey, Eris, did you write these?" And then she'd be like, "Fuck yeah!" Or "What? What is this?" Like,
Yeah.
Didn't Eris act like that's what happened? Like
oh, I
Eris
don't know.
said,
Did
"Yeah,
that happen?
it's not me."
It might have.
I think
I
that's
don't
what
remember
happened.
There's so much
I could be
lore.
wrong.
I haven't been through all
There's
of
a
it.
lot to get wrong.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, but there's lore on Eris Morn. I mean, so many. Um, so it's like and we still, like I said though, we still don't know who wrote Truth to Power, but we know that Truth to Power seeds a lot of warnings and a lot of predictions that we're not sure if they necessarily are true or not.
Okay, so, Doctor, you specifically don't go anywhere. We need to start wrapping up this podcast because
Oh yeah.
this is already a super long podcast as it is, like generally compared to other podcasts. So the podcast as of right now is over. But if you'd like to spend the next 5 minutes listening to Dr. John,
Oh no.
Here we go.
he lost a bet. So just like I lost
Better
a bet and he
do
got
it
to do
right.
the intro, he lost a bet and he has to spend the next 5 minutes talking about nothing but Rick Kakis's huge biceps.
I'll get the timer ready.
Not specifically biceps. It could be
Right,
other
huge
muscles.
muscles. Muscles.
Yeah,
Make sure you
female
mention the
can-
calves. The calves are important.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Real quick,
Lem-
because I know some of you will leave because you don't give a crap. Thank you for hanging out with us. It was a lot of fun. Lightstyle, thank you for being here. You were a
Thank you so
blast.
much.
You.
It's
And then
definitely-
don't forget, we'll be back next week. So
To Lightstyle, thanks for doing so much research. We appreciate
Hey,
that.
I tried.
Thank you.
A lot of us have like 5 years of research, and or 5 years of just playing the game.
yeah, I have 5
And
years of playing the
so-
game. I don't have 5 years of research.
Well, I told Melmsie earlier today, I said, look, I'm kind of nervous to come on the lore podcast because I really don't have a lot to offer there. It's like, if you want to like have me on a World of Warcraft lore podcast, that's a different story. I could talk about that for probably a whole day.
We'll be
But
asking you all the
I
questions
mean,
there.
we are the off-topic podcast, so
Yeah.
that's fair. But I think it was interesting how many parallels I could draw between the two games. So it's like I wasn't completely lost because they were kind of the same thing going on. So I kind of caught up.
That's
you
super
know.
interesting too. I
caught
didn't
on
know
with it.
that. Okay.
All
well,
right. So, do I have to start this?
yeah. Yep.
I have a
All
timer
right.
ready.
All right. Hold up. All right. Open image in new tab. All right. Just give everybody. Oh. Hold up.
This doesn't count for your time, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I know. I wish it did.
Okay. Well, you're trying to get that.
Today, Junior.
All right. All right. There we
Okay.
go. Can y'all see that?
Yep.
All right. So obviously here, we got Imtash, Rick Kakis in the middle, and then True Vanguard on the right. But we're not talking about the guy on the left to the right. We're talking about the man in the middle holding the drink. All right. Very first, straight off the bat, you can see those thick biceps right there. All right. That's a man who's got dedication. There is another picture. I don't know where it's at, but it's of him holding a milk jug, and the milk jug looks tiny compared to those biceps. I mean, like, holy cow, it's crazy. And the number one way that I've always said to get somebody to never come on your podcast is to talk about their biceps. But if you really don't want them to come on the podcast, you got to talk about the triceps. All right. Now, I want you to take a look at True Vanguard. All right. He's a nice guy. He's got his drink and everything. You see the triceps. But, I mean, then just look a few inches to the left. And holy cow. Like, you can even see Imtash. He's trying not to look at those triceps right now. I mean, look at them. Look at his eyes. All right. I mean, his eyes are looking at the camera, but he's like, that's a tricep right there. Right there. That's a tricep and a bicep. That's a combo that you cannot live without. And I'm not even joking with you. A combo you cannot live without. Now, this picture doesn't even do the man full justice, but we're going to move on to that shoulder. All right. That deltoid. All right. It is right there. And you can see that man has worked that deltoid out. All right. Very, very, very thick deltoid. All right. Yeah, I mean, like, seriously, I could put a tree on that thing and it would still be left standing. He could carry anything. I mean, I've seen him carry people through trials. I mean, I've seen him carry trash through trials. All right. But I've never seen him carry a tree. But I imagine if he did, it would be on those deltoids right there. All right. Now, this isn't the best picture, but we're going to move on to the hands. All right. The pinky is very important in this. All right. Because the thing is that this man is full of dedication. All right. He uploads every single day onto his YouTube channel, like every single day about whatever Destiny related. And that takes dedication, but it also means there's a lot of typing involved. And I want you to look at those thick fingers right there. All right. Those are fingers that have been typing for years about having to write these scripts up. All right, this man has thick, muscular fingers. I mean, I just imagine that grip is so tight that you'd just be like, that is a tight grip. All right, and now we're gonna move on. All right, we gotta move on. We gotta get all the way to the chest. All right, Rick Cactus's chest muscles are something that you've never seen before. Now, I haven't been able to find a picture of him without a shirt on, but I can already imagine there's a 6-pack under there. No, there's a 16-pack under there. All right, he's packing heat. He doesn't want to show it because he doesn't want you to feel bad about the fact that you only have a 6-pack. All right, that's all he's doing. You know, I mean, straight up, so big. All right, now if that's not enough for you, I mean, you've seen The Rock, right? Everybody here has seen The Rock. Yeah, The Rock looks like Kevin Hart compared to Rick Cactus. All right, because The Rock is straight up out here like Kevin Hart. All right, because Rick Cactus makes The Rock look tiny. He's got those big muscles, like I mean, Rambo type muscles. Like straight up, I can see him just pulling a belt loop out to create a tourniquet on his leg, but then he would run into the problem that his legs are so thick that the belt wouldn't even fit all the way around the leg, and he couldn't create a proper tourniquet. So he might bleed out, but at least he'll bleed out knowing that he has the thickest muscles around. All right, especially in the Destiny community. Now, all I'm saying is that all of this combined should combine for this perfect female specimen. And he absolutely is. All right. We need to put him on Bungie's website. He should be the new face of Bungie. You know, I mean, he even has the beard. He's got the mustache. I mean, we might even need to make him the face of the channel. I mean, I know we're talking about muscles, but that beard is a muscle. At least it is on his face, all right? Like, Melmsie has tried to pull it off, but Rick Cactus did it first. And that is the big thing. So,
Under
to
the beard is
recap,
another
with
bicep.
to recap, he has a bicep, a tricep, and then on the other hand, he has another bicep and tricep. All right, and you got to say them separately because they're so big individually. One of his biceps, I guarantee you, is bigger than your entire arm. All right, it's so big. So in all, that is a man of performance, a man of dedication who has the thickest muscles around. And that's me talking about Rick Cactus's muscles for 5 minutes.
That was actually really impressive.
That was incredible.
That was beautiful.
Oh,
Rick
right.
Cactus, I'm sorry, my buddy Dr. John here sexualized you like that for so long. I will support you in any lawsuits here. So, yeah, that's.
Hey, he responded to us on Twitter, and
I'm gonna clip this video and send that
That's
directly
gonna
to
be
him.
the last one for sure. He's never gonna talk to any of us.
Yeah,
again.
no.
coming on
I'm
the
actually gonna
podcast.
clip it and say,
Greetings,
"Will you be on
Mr.
our podcast
Cactus.
next time and comment on your own muscles?"
Oh
No,